In a landmark moment that rippled across the globe, President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso took to the stage in a nationally televised address, broadcast live and streamed to millions worldwide, with a mission far greater than a typical political announcement. Clad in his signature modest uniform and flanked by the vibrant energy of the Burkinabe people, Traoré prepared to challenge not just the conventions of global development, but the worldview of some of the most influential figures in modern tech, most notably Elon Musk. At that very moment, thousands of miles away in the gleaming glass corridors of SpaceX headquarters in California, Elon Musk was watching. Reclining in the comfort of a minimalist, ultra-modern office pulsing with ambient AI interfaces, Musk was not expecting to be impressed. For weeks, he had stirred controversy by dismissing African-led technological efforts as idealistic theater, a jab he made during an investor Q&A when asked about emerging innovation hubs on the continent. Musk had argued that without multi-billion-dollar infrastructures, African nations were, in his words, romanticizing struggle without delivering scalable results. But as Traoré began to speak, something shifted. Ladies and gentlemen, the Burkinabe president began his voice calm but commanding, cutting through the auditorium's anticipation like a well-honed blade. Today I want to speak not only to my nation, but to the world. I want to speak about real innovation. He paused, eyes locking with the lens, as if peering through to every living room, every boardroom, and unmistakably into the office of Elon Musk himself. Innovation, he continued, is not the privilege of the wealthy. It is not measured in billions of dollars or the sleekness of your satellites. It is measured in the courage to solve problems with the tools you do have, not the ones you dream of having. On-screen images began to appear, simple, powerful vignettes of rural Burkina Faso. A cluster of thatched homes glowing under solar panels. Children gathered around tablets learning coding basics in their native language. Farmers adjusting smart irrigation systems that had in just 2 seasons doubled their crop yields. The audience in the auditorium applauded, but it was the global digital audience watching from homes, cafes, and yes, even Silicon Valley offices that truly stirred. Back in California, Musk's eyes narrowed not in disdain, but in something far more rare for the billionaire technologist: reflection. President Traoré pressed forward, his voice gathering momentum. To those who doubt our ability to innovate, to those who say transformation requires imported technologies and inherited wealth, I say this: dignity is our capital. Resilience is our infrastructure. And with those, we will build our future. Musk sat motionless. It was not the usual defiance he was used to from critics. There were no barbs, no populist digs. Only a clear-eyed, unflinching challenge from a leader who did not ask for permission to dream, only the right to be taken seriously. The speech ended. The room in Ouagadougou erupted in applause. But in Musk's world, there was only silence for several minutes. Alone in his office, he leaned back, watching the final freeze frame of Traoré's composed expression. Musk, who had built rockets, satellites, electric cars, and social media empires, was thinking, not calculating, thinking. It was then that something unprecedented happened. Hours later, Musk posted on his X, formerly Twitter account, an act that in recent months he had reserved only for strategic announcements or cryptic tech philosophies. Just watch President Traoré's address, Musk wrote. Powerful message. Perhaps I underestimated what countries like Burkina Faso can achieve with creativity and determination. It's time to rethink some things. The internet exploded. Within minutes, hashtags like #Traoré Challenge and #Musk Reconsiders trended globally. African media outlets hailed it as a watershed moment. Western commentators expressed cautious optimism. Even political rivals of Traoré acknowledged the sheer precision with which the message had landed. In a world tired of platitudes, here was a leader offering proof, not just promises. More telling, however, was the tone of Musk's response. It was not sarcastic, not veiled. It was unusually sincere, an acknowledgement that innovation, as Traoré had stated, might truly be about more than money. Perhaps it was about the will to adapt, to invent, to serve people before profits. Analysts were quick to pick up on the implications. If Musk, one of the modern era's most vocal technologists, was shifting his stance on how innovation should be judged, could that spark new partnerships? Could it influence global investment attitudes toward African nations? As debate surged, Traoré remained characteristically quiet. His team issued no triumphant follow-up. No media blitz. For him, the message had been delivered, loud enough to shake a billionaire, soft enough to resonate with millions, and grounded enough to remain true to his people. In a geopolitical landscape often dominated by cynicism and spectacle, Traoré had chosen something different: substance. And in doing so, he reminded the world, and perhaps even Elon Musk, that the future of innovation might not be written solely in the labs of Palo Alto or the skyscrapers of Dubai. It might also be etched into the dusty ground of a solar-lit village in Burkina Faso, where transformation begins not with technology, but with dignity. A quiet revolution. How a message sparked a global movement back in Burkina Faso. President Ibrahim Traoré sat in his modest office, watching Elon Musk's viral tweet unfold across the internet. A discreet smile played on his lips, not one of triumph, but of quiet satisfaction. For Traoré, this was never about public approval. It was about planting a seed. In a live interview with national broadcaster RTB, a journalist leaned in and asked what many were wondering. "Mr. President, did you expect that response from Elon Musk?" Traoré's expression remained serene. He shook his head slowly. "I don't act for applause," he replied, "but I'm encouraged that the message reached someone like Mr. Musk. It proves that sincerity can cross borders and challenge even the most ingrained assumptions." Indeed, what began as a single speech had snowballed into a transcontinental dialogue about the meaning of innovation, power, and leadership. International media outlets from Al Jazeera to The Guardian picked up the story, highlighting the rare public moment of humility from the world's richest man and the steadfast clarity of a president from one of Africa's most resilient nations. In the United States, Musk, always a figure of contradiction, was undergoing something of a metamorphosis. During a closed-door strategy session at SpaceX, he made an unexpected proposal. "We need a new program," he said to his development team. "Call it Innovation Without Borders. Let's support local tech ecosystems across Africa, not to replicate Silicon Valley, but to empower people on their terms. I want to work with leaders like President Traoré, not to impose, but to learn and co-create." Meanwhile, in Burkina Faso, President Traoré had already launched a nationwide initiative called Technology for Dignity. Its goal to equip the next generation of Burkinabe with the tools to create local solutions to local problems. Government-funded schools began offering courses in programming, robotics, and sustainable energy. International partnerships helped supply equipment and training, but the ideas, the ingenuity remained proudly homegrown. One of the earliest success stories came from a rural village in the Sahel region. A teenage girl named Fatou, barely 16, had developed a simple but revolutionary mobile app that connected smallholder farmers to urban markets. With just a few taps, villagers could now sell produce directly to city buyers, cutting out exploitative middlemen and boosting incomes overnight. "Before, my family struggled to eat 3 times a day," Fatou shared during a radio interview. "Now we're not only surviving, we're helping other farmers grow. And it's all thanks to President Traoré and Mr. Musk." Her story resonated globally. Media outlets from Paris to Sao Paulo ran features on Burkina Faso's tech renaissance. Headlines hailed Traoré's leadership as a case study in turning criticism into collaboration. Traoré proves leadership is not about power. Read one op-ed in the New York Times, but about purpose, humility, and elevating others. The emerging friendship between Traoré and Musk, though marked more by symbolic gestures than formal meetings, became a phenomenon in itself. Not just a political oddity, but a symbol of cross-cultural inspiration. In a world often cynical about true dialogue, this was something different: the collision of two wildly different worlds bound by a shared belief in possibility. During a field visit to a village benefiting from the Technology for Dignity program, President Traoré met a young boy named Mamadou. Shy but determined, Mamadou approached with a new notebook clutched in his hands, one of many donated through international aid partnerships inspired by the program. "Mr. President," the boy said, voice trembling with emotion, "this is for you. I want to show you that we're using what we've been given to learn." Traoré knelt to meet his gaze, visibly moved. "You don't owe me anything, Mamadou," he said softly. "You're showing the world what's possible when people are trusted with the right tools. You are the future, and you are already building it." The image of that moment, Traoré, clad in traditional Burkinabe attire, receiving a notebook from a child whose life had been changed, circulated rapidly across social media. It wasn't staged, it wasn't polished, it was real, and it became one of the most widely shared photos of the year. Observers around the globe began to reconsider what leadership really looked like. Not grand declarations or rigid hierarchies, but tangible human change. In the months following the exchange between Traoré and Musk, Burkina Faso saw a surge of interest from international investors, NGOs, and educational institutions eager to partner on localized ethical innovation. The idea of building two-way conversations between global tech leaders and grassroots communities began to take root. In place of paternalism, a new model emerged: partnership through respect. This new spirit culminated in a special national ceremony held in the heart of Ouagadougou. Hundreds gathered beneath a canopy of Burkina Faso's red, green, and gold to celebrate the impact of technology for dignity. There were farmers who had doubled their harvests using solar-powered irrigation. There were teenagers presenting mobile apps that helped track school attendance. And there were guests from abroad: journalists, philanthropists, and even policy advisors who had followed the story from the beginning. When President Traoré took the stage, he wore no suit, no bulletproof vest, just the woven cotton tunic of his people. He looked out at the crowd, a rare flicker of emotion visible on his face. "We are not here to prove anyone wrong," he said. "We are here to prove that hope, when shared, multiplies, that dignity, when honored, transforms, and that even the smallest village can become a beacon of innovation if we believe in each other." The crowd erupted in cheers, not out of protocol, but out of pride. For many, it was not just a celebration of technological advancement. It was a celebration of something deeper, a new chapter in global solidarity. And somewhere, perhaps in a boardroom in California or on a solar-lit hilltop in the Sahel, that quiet thunder continued to echo. Kindness unites worlds, the legacy of dignity and shared dreams. Today, President Ibrahim Traoré said, his voice thick with emotion, "We are not here just to celebrate policies, budgets, or statistics. We are here to honor the hands and minds that built this nation. You are the true pillars of Burkina Faso." He paused, allowing the silence to carry the weight of his words. Then he continued, "When I spoke with Mr. Musk," Traoré said, looking into the crowd gathered in Ouagadougou's central square, "I was reminded of something important, that genuine gestures can transcend politics, culture, even distance. And today together we are proving that." At the end of the ceremony, as applause gave way to spontaneous songs and community chants, a small child made her way through the crowd toward the stage. In her tiny hands was a handmade wooden sculpture, two human figures holding hands carved from local wood. On its base, in small but clear letters, was the phrase, "Kindness unites worlds." Traoré accepted the gift, smiling softly. He knew instantly this was more than a token, it was a symbol, a reminder that transformation begins with empathy and that every small act of compassion can ripple into something far greater. As the celebration drew to a close, President Traoré stepped off the stage and walked toward a family who had been among the first to benefit from the Technology for Dignity program. He knelt beside an 8-year-old girl, holding a worn but lovingly crafted cloth doll. "How are you adjusting to your new life?" he asked, crouching to her eye level. The girl looked up shyly. Then with quiet confidence, she answered, "I'm going to school now, Mr. President, and now I can dream." Traoré's expression softened, touched by the purity and power of her words. It wasn't infrastructure or metrics that measured the success of the initiative. It was the permission for a child to dream. Nearby, a foreign journalist scribbled a note in his weathered notebook. "Today in Burkina Faso, I witnessed the future of Africa, rooted in its past, rising with dignity and building bridges of hope." As the dust settled in Ouagadougou across the Atlantic in the United States, Elon Musk continued to follow the unfolding story with growing respect. In a rare moment of vulnerability during a televised interview, Musk was asked once more about his thoughts on President Traoré. "This man is something special," Musk admitted, pausing as the host raised an eyebrow. "He's proving he doesn't need anyone's validation. Maybe I underestimated him, and that was my mistake." The admission sent shockwaves across international headlines. For a man known for his unapologetic confidence, this was more than a quote, it was a recognition. That kindness, not dominance, could lead the way. That collaboration, not conquest, was the key to future innovation. Back in Burkina Faso, the story was entering a new chapter. Fatou, the young developer, who had once connected farmers to markets with her homemade app, now walked with a different weight on her shoulders. She had traveled from Bobo Dioulasso to a small community center in the outskirts of Ouagadougou there to meet Marie and Malik, two local leaders spearheading a grassroots support network for displaced families. Inside the building, Marie was finishing preparations for a public event. Her face, though tired and tear-stained, lit up when she spotted Fatu at the door. "She's here," Marie whispered into her phone, her voice cracking with emotion. "She's just walked in." Malik, still wearing the same patched jumper he always wore with quiet pride, crossed the room and greeted Fatu with a nod that said more than words could. "Thank you for coming," Marie said softly. "We know this hasn't been easy. I had to." Fatu replied, her hands trembling. "I needed to see what you're building with my own eyes." Marie led her to a quiet room where documents, maps, and hand-drawn plans littered a table. Malik remained silent, but his presence was comforting, solidarity in human form. Fatu Marie began gently, "The road ahead might be uncertain, but you're not alone. We're here." This center was built for people just like you, to remind them that strength is something we can rebuild. Fatu's voice quivered. "What will happen to my family?" Marie took a deep breath. "We can't promise it will be easy, but we can promise you access to every tool, every bit of support to help you begin again." Malik stepped forward, resting a hand on her shoulder. "You've already shown incredible courage just by walking through that door." For the first time in weeks, Fatu exhaled without tension. The burden hadn't vanished, but it was no longer hers to carry alone. Outside, the community center buzzed with energy. Dozens had gathered to share stories, seek support, and find solidarity. On a makeshift stage, Marie stepped up to address the crowd. Today, she declared, "We reaffirm a truth that transcends borders, that human dignity is not negotiable. No matter who you are or where you come from, you deserve to be treated with respect." She gestured toward the crowd. "This center was not built by me or Malik. It was built by you, by our shared stories, our collective pain, and our united strength." Applause erupted, tears flowed freely. Inside, Fatu watched from behind the curtain, hand over her heart. She felt something awaken, a quiet flame of belonging. At the event's end, she joined the others. Faces once unfamiliar now welcomed her with warmth. She embraced Marie tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what comes next, but I know now I won't face it alone." Marie smiled, tears shimmering in her eyes. "None of us ever will."